My name is Pam Burton, and I teach at Johnson County Middle School. I'm a language arts teacher for almost 30 years in Johnson County. I've taught 38, but for the last 5 years, I've also been teaching math. And so I look at math from a perspective of how is math really useful in the world. And so my project and my question was, how can I help my students to understand the value behind angles of elevation and angles of depression, and when do we actually use cosine, and how do we use trig, and what is this orthographic? What do we mean when we say orthographic views? And so that was what I wanted to do, is I wanted to come up with a way to help my students to understand that the math that they were learning in geometry class was math that was really connected to the real world. I also like to do things and make stuff, and I like to see my students take over the classroom. And so what we're doing is we are making scale models of some of the tallest buildings in the world. So here's the process. Students have started out, and I gave them research sheets, and they had charts that they had to complete. And because we live in Eastern Kentucky, and I'm also an academic coach, I'm always wanting my students to be aware of how big the world is and what's available in the world. And I believe that with the new technology, because I've been teaching for 39 years, that with the new technology, that, you know, we're no longer isolated. And so my students all research, and there's a picture of the chart. If you look downstairs, I just took some of their work and put it up. So they've been looking at like TIPI 101, which is an academic team question. And if you all know anything about me with academics, if an academic team competition, if I can ever find a connection in my class, I'm going to make it. The Burj Khalifa, they're getting ready to build the Jeddah Tower, which is going to be 1,000 meters tall. And another thing that my students have a hard time with is a concept of measurement. And they don't understand what a meter is. They don't understand what 2 meters would be. And so I thought that if we could build scale models, that I could help them to understand the relationships between objects. And so what we've done is they've researched these different buildings. They've had to find out who's the leading architect, where are these buildings, how tall are these buildings. And then they've had to figure out what's the base of the building. How does the building have a foundation? How does it have support? They're researching to find out, why was this building built in this area? What were the intentions? Is there something special about the building? And so for the grant, I asked for craft sticks. I asked for small drills. I asked for lights, LED lights. I asked for paint. And so the students, after they research, they're also drawing scale models. Now, we started doing that this past week, and the first scale models that they drew, the first sketches, and we're using the word orthographic views because we see that word in our geometry book and we do nothing with it, and it needs to look straight on. And so all of a sudden, when you know that you have to create something out of craft sticks, looking at it straight on becomes important. And so they've drawn an orthographic view of the front. They are also drawing orthographic views of the bottom and at the top, and they have to research and find those numbers. And so they started by doing that, and then we decided we would try 1 centimeter was equal to 10 meters. And they cut out figures. And so they've really been struggling with that bottom, like the Burj Khalifa is like 3-pronged. And then I think the Skytree, or one of them, is actually an equilateral triangle. And so we're using the math. Yesterday I was working with a kid called Colby, and we were doing proportions to set up to show them how to solve for the scale. And he said, oh, I don't like this math, but I got to do it. And it's the idea that they have seen. They got to play with the drills yesterday. And so they have now seen what they're going to do with this, and they have a purpose. And that's what I was trying to do. I believe that if we give students a purpose to learn content, especially math, and if we show them why those mathematical concepts are important, they will remember them. And that's what I'm hoping will happen. And so we're going to change, because yesterday, Colby, we put some of the cutouts together, and they decided they would like for them to be a little bit taller. So today they're redrawing the scale, and they're actually going to double it so that 1 centimeter is going to be 5 meters, because they weren't happy that some of them were going to be smaller, and they were concerned when they had to build that base that it would be too difficult for them. So they chose yesterday to make them bigger. I love student choice. I like for students to be actively involved. The handout that I have given you also shows some errors that happen. There's a picture in there with the Eiffel Tower because I also got a model for them. And we've been learning the Pythagorean theorem, and we've been learning about the special triangles 30, 60, 90, and 45, 45, 90. So we were testing. And they were using string and the measuring tapes, and they were measuring different distances, and it didn't work. And so we went back and we figured out, wow, where did you measure from? Well, they measured from the incline, the slant height of the Eiffel Tower. They did not go the vertical height that was perpendicular to the ground. That's a great lesson. That's what I think is going to happen. I believe that as the students begin to build these buildings, and I've seen more interest because like even on understanding whether the bottom is a circle or a square or an octagon, whether it's a regular shape or an irregular shape, the vocabulary becomes important. And so that's my project, and that's what we're trying to do. Any questions? Well, yes and no. I teach, I'm the gifted ed coordinator for our county, but I teach language arts, and I teach study skills, and I teach geometry. The study skills is actually enrichment, gifted and talented. I'm using it in that class and geometry right now, but we do lots of crafts in all my classes. But yeah, that's where I'm using it. And like we're going to go back with some of the kids in the geometry class. We're going to the Jeddah Tower once we build these others because it's just being built now. It's going to be 1,000 meters tall. And then, of course, the kids are getting some perspective because the Burj Khalifa is a little over 800 meters tall. And so when they were putting them together, all of a sudden they're seeing the differences in height. It's becoming concrete for them. And we're also going to put people beside them. We're using a big light because we're going to create shadows. So, I bought a light for them to put behind it, and we're going to see how the shadows work, and we're going to play. You know, if you've taught 39 years, you might as well play. So I play. My principals can tell you we play in my room. And we learn from discovery. It was just like I thought 1 centimeter, 10 meters was great. The kids were right. It's not good because the bottom was too skinny. And then they're going to find out why they had to build those bases down into the ground. Like how far down do they have to go? And is the reinforced steel going to be good enough? And the Burj Khalifa kind of spirals. And then the one of them looks like the lotus plant opening up or pagoda reversed. So they're learning all kinds of concepts. And they're also making posters. They're going to write about them. But it's fun. And I hope it works. I'm going to find out if they remember this content as well as I think they will. Okay.